Hello, you're on the Reddit Reveals channel. The door wasn't locked. She always locked the door, even when I was just grabbing mail, even when I was walking the dog for 6 minutes. But not today. Today the door was open. I stood there for a full minute, holding a plastic bag of frozen peas and canned chili, listening to the sound of my own pulse crashing against my ears like waves. I don't know why I walked in quiet, like I was the intruder in my own home. Maybe some part of me already knew. Her jacket was on the floor. The expensive one. The one she never let wrinkle. Next to it, his shoes. Big, clunky gym shoes that didn't belong to any friend we'd ever had. Then I heard it. Her laugh. Not her fake polite laugh she gave to my mother or waiters. Her real laugh. The one I hadn't heard in weeks. Maybe months. Maybe more. That's when I dropped the bag. The peas burst first. They always do. She came out of the hallway a second later, wrapped in a blanket, holding a wine glass. Her hair damp like she'd just showered off a lie. She didn't gasp. She didn't run. She didn't even apologize. She just looked at me, looked through me, and said, "You're early." Not "I'm sorry." Not "this isn't what it looks like." Just that, "You're early." I said something back. I don't remember what. My ears were on fire. My fingers tingled. I think I asked who he was. I think I asked why. That's when she smiled. Smiled. "Lyle," she said, and I'll never forget how calm her voice was. "We need to evolve. You're stuck. We both are. So, here's the truth." Then she gave me a choice. A twisted, tangled, smug little ultimatum, wrapped in words like growth, freedom, self-discovery. Either you let me see him, or we separate. As if those were my only options. As if she hadn't already made the decision days ago when she stopped locking the door. She told me I had 2 days to think. But I didn't need 2 days. I needed 10 minutes. And I was about to make the quietest, coldest decision of my life. I didn't slam the door. I didn't scream. I didn't ask for details, how long it had been going on, who he was, whether he had a family too. I just walked into the bedroom, stepped over her jacket, and sat down on the edge of the bed we used to share. I don't know why I opened the top drawer of my nightstand. Maybe I needed to touch something real, something that hadn't been infected by all of this. There was a half-used bottle of sinus spray, a birthday card from my sister, and a single sock that had been missing for months. Somehow that sock broke me more than her words. I sat there with it in my hands, like I was cradling some metaphor I didn't understand yet. And in the other room, I could still hear her laugh. Not with him. He had disappeared, probably out the back window like a coward, but on the phone. She was already laughing with someone else. Like none of it mattered. Like this wasn't the biggest betrayal of my life. Like I was just an inconvenience. I stayed in that room for 13 minutes. I counted. And in those 13 minutes, something shifted. Not snapped. Not exploded. Shifted. Quietly. Like the tide pulling back before a storm. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't write a note. I just grabbed the hoodie I liked most. The one she said made me look like a sad librarian. And I walked out. I walked for hours. Past our favorite bakery. Past the park where we once got caught in the rain and kissed under a tree like we were in a movie. Past the place where she first told me she loved me. Shaking, crying, saying she wasn't good at vulnerability. God, I believed her. I ended up on a bench near the river. The sky was the color of regret. Dark, wide, and endless. I watched ducks drift in lazy spirals and thought about how unfair it all was. Not just the cheating. Not just the ultimatum. But the fact that she looked so calm. So in control, like she'd been planning this scene for weeks, rehearsing it in her head while I made dinner or folded her laundry or unclogged the bathroom sink for the 4th time this month. And me? I was the wreck. I was the one shaking, unraveling, collapsing from the inside like a bad lung. I pulled out my phone at one point. Not to call her. Not to scream. I opened a notes app and typed. I don't think I was ever part of her future. Just a cushion for her landing. Then I deleted it. Because even that felt too dramatic, too poetic, to me. She probably thought I'd beg, that I'd sit her down and ask her to reconsider, that I'd offer compromises, plead for couples therapy, read some article about ethical non-monogamy, and pretend I was okay with it, just to keep her around. But what she didn't understand, what she never understood, is that I may be a pushover, a chronic apologizer, a man who cries when a dog dies in a commercial. But even I have a line. And she crossed it when she gave me that choice like it was some generous gift. When she framed her betrayal as personal growth. By the time I got back to the apartment, The sky had gone black. She was asleep, and I stood in that doorway, watching her breathe like nothing had changed, and whispered to myself, "This is the last night I'll ever see her." She didn't wake up when I opened the closet, didn't stir when I pulled out the old duffel bag, the blue one with the broken zipper she kept meaning to throw away. She didn't move when I stood over her for a full minute, watching the strands of hair fall across her cheek, wondering how many lies were tangled between them. I packed like a ghost, quiet, slow, invisible. Only what I needed. No keepsakes, no mementos, just clothes, my laptop, and the red folder. God, the red folder. I hadn't looked at that thing in years. It was buried under our taxes and expired warranties. Back when we first moved in, she made fun of me for creating it, called it my paranoia pack. But inside was everything she never thought I'd keep. Photocopies of old texts she'd once sent during a rough patch, the kind that made me sleep in my car for a night. Receipts from weekend trips she claimed were work-related, screenshots of messages I never had the courage to confront her about. It wasn't a revenge folder. I didn't make it to hurt her. I made it because I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I took the folder because I didn't trust myself to remember. Pain messes with memory. It either burns too bright or fades into fog. And I needed clarity. The apartment was silent, but not peaceful. The kind of silence that hums behind your ears. Heavy, expectant, like the air knows a storm is coming. I stepped out, closed the door behind me, and didn't even flinch when it creaked louder than it ever had. If it woke her, fine. Let her wake up to absence. I stayed in a cheap motel that night. The kind with scratchy blankets and vending machines that only take quarters. I couldn't sleep. Not because of the noise, not even because of her, but because for the first time in months, my body wasn't clenching itself to survive. I felt numb, terrifyingly numb. At 4:12 a.m., I opened the red folder again. I told myself it was closure. It wasn't. Inside, I found something I forgot I put there, a printed itinerary from our 3rd anniversary. She never showed up to that trip. Said her sister had an emergency. I believed her. She cried on the phone. Said I was selfish for making her feel guilty about choosing family. But right there, on that crumpled page, was a dinner reservation for 2 she never canceled, 2 hours away from where her sister lived. I remember calling the restaurant. Back then, they said the table was used. 2 people, name under hers. I told myself it was a mistake. It wasn't. That night in the motel, I stared at that page like it was a murder scene. Not because I hadn't seen it before, but because now, I was finally willing to believe it. She hadn't just cheated. She had trained me to forgive the warning signs, to doubt myself, to file away my suspicions like junk mail and trust her smile instead. And maybe I would have done it again, if not for the folder, if not for the open door, if not for her smug little ultimatum, wrapped in empowerment and laced with betrayal. The next morning, I booked a storage unit, paid for 2 months in advance. No plan, just impulse. And by the time the sun came up, I had made one decision. I wasn't just going to disappear quietly. I was going to leave behind something she couldn't ignore, something she'd find exactly 3 days later. 3 days. That's how long it took for her to notice. I timed it. 3 days from the moment I left the apartment to the minute my phone lit up with her name at 6:47 a.m. On a Tuesday, the same hour she used to drink her coffee barefoot, humming indie pop songs while scrolling through astrology memes. I stared at the screen. Didn't answer. Let it ring out into nothing. 1 minute later, a text. "Lyle, we need to talk." "What is this?" I smiled. A real, actual smile. The first one in weeks. I knew exactly what she found. Before I left, I had taken the red folder, but I'd also made copies. Not just of the texts, the receipts, the screenshots, but of something else. Something I had forgotten existed until I was packing. A letter. Not from her, but to her. One I had written during our 2nd year of marriage. It was never meant to be read. Just one of those late-night confessions you put on paper and shove in a drawer so your heart doesn't explode. It said everything. How I felt like a passenger in her life. How I noticed the way she flinched when I touched her shoulder. How I heard her crying in the bathroom when she thought I was asleep. How I knew, even back then, that one day she'd choose something else over me. I had sealed it in a plain white envelope and slid it behind the mirror in the hallway. The one where she always checked her lipstick before heading out. And now, apparently, she found it. It must have slipped out when she was cleaning. Or maybe she broke the frame. Either way, it was in her hands now, along with the rest of what I left behind, my wedding ring, sitting alone in the kitchen sink, and a printed note I taped to the fridge. It didn't say much. Just, you wanted space. I gave it to you. But freedom doesn't erase the past. And I'm not the one who has to look in the mirror now. The silence after that text was beautiful. No more calls. No follow-up. Just one panicked message and nothing else. I imagined her pacing, clutching the envelope, realizing that I had been paying more attention than she ever guessed, that I hadn't been as blind, as slow, as spineless as she thought. I spent the next 2 days in my cousin's guest room, surrounded by boxes and cat hair and the smell of old furniture. I told him I needed space, not answers. He left me alone. Good man. On the second night, I opened my email and found a message from an address I didn't recognize. No subject. One sentence. You really think this makes you better than me? No greeting. No name. But I knew it was her. I didn't reply. I archived it. I didn't need to be better. I didn't need to win. I just needed her to feel it. The weight of what she'd done. The arrogance of her ultimatum unraveling in real time. But I also knew it wouldn't end there. Colette was many things, selfish, manipulative, charismatic to a fault, but she was never the type to go down quietly. She'd spin this. Recast herself as the victim. Reach out to mutual friends. Cry into the right ears. Say things like, Lal just couldn't handle it, or he always overreacted. And you know what? I was ready for that too. Because while she was busy rewriting the story, I was preparing the original. The one with dates, screenshots, context. And one person, in particular, was going to see it first. Someone she would never expect. I knew her sister would check the email. Emma was the golden child. Always was. 7 years younger, but somehow 10 years wiser. The one who got engaged with a scrapbook proposal, paid off her student loans before 30, and didn't cry when her hamster died. Colette always said Emma was too perfect. I always thought Emma was just honest. When Colette started pulling away from me, Emma noticed first. She never said it directly. She was too tactful for that. But she began inviting me to lunch without her sister. Casual little things, like, hey, I'm trying this new Thai place and I don't want to sit alone. I always knew it was more than that. A subtle check-in. A quiet act of concern. So when I compiled everything, the texts, the emails, the call logs, the timeline, even my goodbye letter, I didn't send it to Colette. I sent it to Emma. The subject line was simple. If you ever wondered. And then I waited. 2 hours passed. Nothing. Then 4. Still nothing. And then, right before midnight, I got a reply. I always knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how bad it really was. I'm sorry, Lyle. This isn't on you. That last line broke something in me. It wasn't even dramatic. It didn't come with fireworks. But after months, years, of feeling like a side character in my own relationship, like some weird emotional couch she crashed on between real adventures, finally, someone just said it wasn't my fault. And not just someone. Her sister. Emma didn't ask questions. Didn't probe. She just said she'd handle it on her end. Whatever that meant, I left it alone. I didn't need more details. That wasn't the point. I didn't want revenge. I wanted witnesses. I wanted someone else to know that I hadn't imagined it all. The manipulation, the emotional vacancy, the gaslighting dressed up as tough love. I wasn't crazy. I was just in a relationship with someone who made me feel that way. But of course, things don't just stop after you drop a bomb like that. The next day, I started getting messages. Not from Colette. From friends. Old ones. Mutual ones. Some subtle, some blunt. Hey man, Colette's saying some stuff. You okay? I don't know what happened, but she's spiraling. Did you actually send her sister a whole report? Bro. Yeah, I did. And I wasn't sorry. She told people I vanished. That I emotionally blackmailed her by walking out. That she was exploring herself, and I couldn't handle it. Classic projection. She always was a brilliant storyteller when she needed to be. Could turn a missed call into a betrayal. Could twist your silence into cruelty, your boundaries into aggression. But not this time. This time, I had the receipts. And more importantly, I didn't care if people believed me or not. Not really. I just needed to be done explaining myself. I was done being the man who felt too much. Done being the one who begged for affection like a stray dog, hoping for scraps. The morning after Emma replied, I took the red folder, the original one, and burned it. Every page. Every screenshot. Every sad little proof of pain. It didn't feel victorious. It didn't feel like closure. It just felt necessary. I didn't need it anymore. But I kept one thing. One last letter. Not to her. To me. Written 2 years ago, on a night I'd forgotten about. The night I slept on the fire escape because I couldn't handle the way she looked at me like I was furniture. The letter said, "Someday you'll leave. You won't yell. You won't destroy. You'll just leave. And she won't understand why. But you will. You'll know it wasn't one moment. It was all of them." I folded it, tucked it in my wallet, and decided that would be the last word I ever wrote about her. At least, that's what I thought, until she showed up. It was raining. Of course it was. I had just finished moving the last box into the new apartment, a studio above a deli that smelled like onions and fresh bread and comfort, when someone knocked. 3 short taps. Hesitant, too polite to be a neighbor, too calculated to be accidental. I didn't need to look through the peephole. I already knew. Colette. She looked different. Not in a dramatic way. Not thinner, not Messier. Just reduced. The volume turned down. Her hair pulled back in a way she only did when she was overwhelmed. No makeup, oversized sweatshirt that wasn't hers. And something in her eyes, not regret, exactly. Not guilt either. Something colder. Something strategic. I didn't say anything. I just stood in the doorway, holding the wet umbrella I hadn't used, waiting. She was the one who broke the silence. "You humiliated me." Her voice wasn't shaky. It was sharp, controlled, the kind of tone she used when complaining to customer service. Like I was an inconvenience. A disruption in her carefully curated world. "You went behind my back. Sent things to my sister. To our friends." I almost laughed. Behind your back? Like what she did was some honest, above-board, open-door discussion. Like her cheating came with a user agreement and mutual consent. But I didn't say that. I just leaned against the doorframe and waited for her to run out of steam. She didn't. "You made me look like a monster, Lyle." "And for what? Because I asked for honesty? Because I wanted something different? You never even gave me a chance to explain." That was rich. She gave me a 48-hour window to accept being second place in my own marriage. She'd already chosen him. Already broken every vow we had. But sure, I didn't give her a chance. Still, I didn't speak. I wanted to see where this was going. I wanted to watch the performance unravel on its own. And it did. Eventually, her voice cracked. "Not much. Just enough. I didn't expect you to actually leave." There it was. The truth. That's what all of this had been about. Not betrayal. Not anger. Not reputation. Control. She expected me to flinch, to chase, to negotiate. She'd built our whole marriage around the idea that I wouldn't go anywhere, that I'd always been just a little more. And when I didn't, she panicked. I stepped aside, wordlessly inviting her in. Not to forgive, not to reconcile, but because I needed to hear the rest. I needed to see how she would justify it all. She walked in slowly, like the apartment might bite her. She didn't sit, just stood in the middle of the room, dripping from the rain, spinning the sleeves of her sweatshirt around her wrists. "I never meant for it to go that far," she said eventually. It wasn't serious. It was just supposed to be a reset. A reset. She called sleeping with someone else a reset, like she was rebooting a router. Like cheating was some form of emotional maintenance. "And you couldn't just talk to me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, startled. Maybe because I finally spoke. Maybe because I didn't yell. Maybe because there was no anger in my voice, just fatigue. A deep, bottomless exhaustion that even she couldn't spin as melodrama. "Would it have changed anything?" she asked. That stopped me. Because the truth? I didn't know. Maybe if she had told me the truth, before the lies, before the man in the hallway, before the open door, maybe I would have fought. Maybe I would have stayed. Maybe I would have twisted myself into something else, something more modern, just to keep her. But now it was too late. Not because of the cheating, but because of the calculation, the coldness, the way she handed me that ultimatum like a job offer, the way she expected me to thank her for the honesty. "I'm not asking you to take me back," she said, suddenly. "I just want you to stop making me the villain." I walked to the window, rain tapping against the glass like a metronome, and thought about how absurd that was. How she still thought this was about public perception, about her name in other people's mouths. She didn't want me back. She wanted to scrub the guilt off her skin, and I was supposed to hand her the towel. I turned around and looked her in the eyes. "You're not the villain, Colette," I said quietly. "You're just not the hero of this story. And neither am I." That shook her. Just a little. Enough to make her step back, like the room got smaller. She didn't argue. She didn't apologize. She just nodded once, turned, and left. No door slam. No goodbye. Just the sound of wet footsteps fading into the hallway. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. She hadn't come for closure. She'd come to make sure I didn't have mine. I thought that would be it. That her walking out of my new apartment, drenched and disappointed, would be the final page in this whole mess. That she'd go back to her curated life, spin her story however she needed, and I could finally begin the slow, silent process of rebuilding the parts of me she left hollow. But Colette never let people write the ending. She always needed the last word, even if it wasn't spoken out loud. It started 2 days after she left my apartment. Small things. Subtle. I got a notification that my Apple ID was accessed from an unknown device. Nothing was stolen. No money, no photos, just access. A fingerprint. She knew my old passwords. She must have used one. I changed them all that night. Still, it felt like a boundary had been cracked open. Then came the mutuals. People I hadn't heard from in months started reaching out. Not to check in, not really, but to fish. Hey man, just wanted to see how you're holding up. Colette said you've been going through a lot emotionally. Hope you're getting help. Help? That word stuck with me. She was planting seeds. Quietly, cleverly. Painting me not as the villain. No, she was too smart for that. But as the unstable one. The emotionally fragile husband who couldn't handle a strong, evolving woman. I didn't confront her. That's what she'd expect. A reaction. A scene. Instead, I waited. I kept to myself. Worked late hours. Drank too much coffee. Went on long walks and talked to no one. I started journaling again, not for clarity but for evidence, in case I needed to remember how I felt before she twisted it. Then, one night, I got a message from Emma. She came to my house. That was all it said. I called immediately. Emma answered, her voice sharp but low, like she was still processing. She wanted me to give you a letter. Said she didn't trust herself to send it. I told her not to read it. Emma said she already had. You need to see it, she said. But don't read it tonight. It's not what you think. Of course I read it that night. She'd written it by hand. 3 pages. Neatly folded and stuffed into a manila envelope, like some kind of legal notice. The first half was exactly what I expected. Half-baked apologies. Emotional detours. Blame shared equally and generously. She wrote phrases like, I know I hurt you, and we both made mistakes, as if emotional negligence and betrayal were just different flavors of the same thing. But it was the final paragraph that froze me. I never wanted you to leave, Lyle. You were supposed to fight for me. You always did. That was the role. That was how this worked. You were the gravity. I was the flight. You were supposed to hold me down, not let me drift. I didn't cheat because I didn't love you. I cheated because I wanted you to stop me. And you didn't. It was the most honest thing she'd ever written. And it shattered me. Because for the first time, I saw her clearly. Not as a villain, not even as a narcissist, but as someone who had never felt safe. Not in love. Not in life. She needed chaos to prove she existed. She needed to provoke pain to feel wanted. And I had played my part too well. I was the stability. The patient one. The one who always forgave, always stayed. And when I didn't, her entire identity collapsed. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I sat in the dark and reread that last paragraph until the words stopped making sense. Then I burned the letter in the sink and watched the flames chew through the last proof of who we were. She had given me one final truth. Not to free me, but to mark me. And it worked. Because even now, days later, I can't stop thinking about it. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. Just the fact that she expected me to be the one who saved her from herself. And when I didn't, she made sure I'd never forget that I didn't. It's been 93 days since I saw her. Not that I'm counting. Not in the bitter, obsessed way I used to count the seconds between her replies or the number of times she smiled at her phone while I sat across the room pretending not to notice. This is different. This is a calendar that started on the day I came back to myself. She didn't reach out again. No calls. No letters. No dramatic doorstep apologies or desperate midnight confessions. Maybe Emma finally convinced her to let it go. Or maybe Colette finally realized that some threads, once cut, don't tie back together the same way. Either way, I didn't wait. I started painting again. Not professionally. I'm not one of those people who turns trauma into Etsy shops and inspiration boards. I just bought a cheap set of acrylics and started messing around. Abstracts, mostly. Chaos on canvas. But it made the silence feel less empty. I started cooking for myself. Nothing fancy. Grilled cheese, tomato soup, eggs with too much garlic. Meals for one that didn't feel like punishment. I even began using the good plates, the ones we got as wedding gifts but never touched. That always seemed ridiculous to me, keeping the best things boxed up for occasions that never came. Turns out, being alive is the occasion. And the funny thing is, the apartment above the deli started to feel like home. Not the kind of home you build with someone else, where everything is a compromise and a question. No, this one is different. Everything inside of it, every color on the wall, every song echoing through the speakers, every chipped coffee mug, belongs to me. Not us. Just me. A few days ago, I ran into Emma. We got lunch. It wasn't weird. No tension, no whispered references to her sister. We talked about stupid movies and bad dates and how she's learning to knit for some reason. Before we left, she said, "You look taller." I laughed, but I knew what she meant. It's amazing how much lighter you become when you stop carrying someone else's expectations on your back. That night, I walked home slow. No rush. No phone buzzing. No one waiting to ask why I was late or whether I picked up almond milk. Just the city lights blinking like tiny lighthouses across the pavement. And when I got upstairs, something strange happened. For the first time in months, I opened the window. Wide. I didn't even think about it. I just walked over and lifted the latch. Let the night breeze flood the room. Let the sounds in. Cars. Laughter. Someone playing saxophone 3 blocks away. The world, still spinning, without her. And me? I didn't feel broken. Or betrayed. Or small. I just felt free. Not in the dramatic, Instagram quote kind of way, but in the quiet kind. The real kind. The kind that comes when you finally stop trying to be the version of yourself someone else needed and start being the one you do. So no, I didn't win. This wasn't revenge. I didn't get the last word. But I got something better. I got my life back. And this time, I'm not giving it away to someone who doesn't know how to hold it.